your manifestations keep collapsing. You feel the wish fulfilled for a day, maybe two, and then doubt floods in and washes everything away. You've done the affirmations, you've visualized, you've tried to hold the state, and still, the old story returns like tide over sand. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why some assumptions harden into fact, while others dissolve before they ever reach the physical world. There's a parable in Matthew that most people hear as moral advice. A wise man builds his house on rock, a foolish man builds his on sand. The rain comes, the floods rise, the winds beat against both houses. One stands, one falls. Sunday school teaches this, as obey God's word and your life will be stable. Fair enough. But there's a deeper blueprint hidden inside that story, and it maps directly onto how consciousness creates reality. The house is your assumption. Whatever you've decided is true about yourself and your life, that's what you're building. The rain, the floods, the wind, those are circumstances. The opinions of others, the bank account balance, the rejection email, the delay that looks like denial. Every manifestor faces storms. The question the parable actually asks is, what are you building on? Sand is emotional reactivity. It shifts with every wave. You wake up feeling confident, so you affirm your desire. By lunch, someone says something that triggers an old wound, and suddenly you're back in the old story. By evening, you're scrolling for motivation, trying to pump yourself back up. Sound familiar? That cycle, up down, is building on sand. The house looks identical to the one on rock. Same wood, same nails, same design. The difference is invisible until the storm hits. And storms always hit. Neville Goddard taught that the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the creative act. But he was precise about something most students gloss over. He said to fall asleep in the state, to return to it, to persist. That word, persist, carries the entire weight of the teaching. Persistence means you'll face moments where the feeling fades, where the world shows you evidence against your assumption, where your body is screaming one thing and you're choosing to identify with something else entirely. The feeling of the wish fulfilled was never meant to be an emotional high you chase. It was meant to be a settled knowing you return to, the way you return to your own name. Nobody has to hype themselves up to remember their name. You just know it. That settled knowing is the rock. So what does rock actually feel like in practice? Think about something you've never questioned about yourself. Maybe you know you're a good cook. Maybe you know you're funny. Nobody gave you a certificate. You didn't affirm it 300 times in the mirror. At some point, enough evidence accumulated, or a single defining moment landed, and it became fact inside you. When someone jokes that your cooking is terrible, you laugh. It doesn't land, it slides right off. The storm came, and the house didn't move. You didn't need to defend the belief. You didn't need to reaffirm it. The foundation held because the identity was stable. Now contrast that with a desire you're trying to manifest from an unstable place. You affirm abundance while flinching every time you check your balance. You declare you're in a loving relationship while your stomach drops at every unanswered text. The affirmation is the house. The flinch is the sand underneath it. And no amount of architectural beauty on top will compensate for a foundation that shifts with the weather. The biblical text uses an interesting word for the storm. It says the rain descended, the floods came and the winds blew and beat upon that house. Beat upon. Repeated impact. This mirrors exactly how the three-dimensional world tests a new assumption. It rarely sends one big challenge, it sends a series of small ones. A comment from a friend. A memory that surfaces during meditation. A delay that stretches just long enough to make you wonder. Each one is a wave against your foundation. On rock, each wave breaks and recedes. On sand, each wave erodes a little more until the whole structure tilts. Here's where most people misunderstand the inner work. They think building on rock means eliminating doubt entirely, feeling bulletproof at all times, walking around in some unshakable bliss. That's actually another form of sand, because it's still emotionally dependent. You've just swapped negative reactivity for positive reactivity. Either way, the house rests on how you feel in the moment rather than what you've decided is true, regardless of how you feel. Rock is a decision that has been made, past tense, settled. The way you decided years ago that you're the kind of person who always finds parking, or always lands on their feet, or always figures it out, those assumptions run your life quietly, beneath emotion, beneath mood, beneath circumstance. They produce results so consistently that you've stopped noticing them. You don't celebrate finding parking, you just find it. The assumption is so stable, it's become invisible. Your manifestation practice is asking you to build a new assumption to that same level of stability. And that takes something most teachers don't emphasize enough: repetition through resistance. The house on rock wasn't built in sunshine. It was built knowing the storm was coming. The wise builder in the parable didn't have better weather. He had a better foundation. He chose the harder ground, the ground that didn't shift, even though sand would have been easier to dig into. Building on rock feels harder at first. Sand is soft. Sand is easy. Reacting to every emotion, adjusting your assumption based on today's evidence, seeking constant external validation. That's easy. It feels productive because there's always movement. But movement and stability are different things. A boat in a storm is moving constantly. That movement is the opposite of progress. The practical shift looks like this. When the storm hits, when doubt rises, when evidence contradicts your assumption, you stop trying to feel better. You stop chasing the emotional high of belief. Instead, you return to the decision. I have decided this is who I am. I have decided this is my reality. The feeling may or may not follow in that moment. It doesn't matter. A rock doesn't need to feel like a rock. It just is. One Neville called this persisting in the assumption. Abdullah, his teacher, demonstrated it with a door slammed in his face. When Neville complained about his circumstances, Abdullah didn't console him. He didn't offer a new technique. He closed the door and said, "You are in Barbados." The circumstances said otherwise. The emotions said otherwise. Abdullah's response was the rock. The decision had been made, the conversation was over. That door slam might be the most important teaching in all of Neville's lectures, because it shows you what rock looks like in relationship to the storm. The storm knocked on the door. The rock didn't open it, didn't engage with it, didn't argue with it. Just closed. You can do this with every assumption you're building. When the old story knocks, and it will knock, you close the door. When doubt offers you a long, reasonable explanation for why your desire hasn't shown up yet, you close the door. When your body tightens with anxiety and your mind starts calculating worst-case scenarios, you close the door. You don't fight what's on the other side. You simply return to the room you've built. The one on rock. Over time, something shifts. The storms don't stop, but their power fades. Each wave that breaks against your foundation and fails to move it actually strengthens the rock. Every moment of doubt you sit through without abandoning the assumption adds another layer. The assumption thickens, hardens, becomes that invisible thing, the belief you no longer think about because it's just what's true. This is the part of manifestation that social media skips. The glamorous version is the visualization, the scripting, the I am affirmations with candles and music. Those are the house, beautiful, necessary, real. But the foundation work? Sitting quietly with a decision when everything around you and inside you argues against it? Choosing the rock when the sand is right there, soft and inviting. That's the actual creative act. That's where assumption crosses the threshold from wish into fact. The parable ends with a simple observation. The house on rock stood, the house on sand fell. And great was the fall of it. That last phrase carries a warning. When you build a manifestation on emotional sand, on hype, on temporary confidence, on a good mood, the collapse doesn't just set you back to zero. It shakes your faith in the entire process. You start to wonder if manifestation even works. You start to think you're the exception, the one person the law doesn't apply to. Great was the fall of it. The damage extends beyond the single desire, into your relationship with your own creative power. But when you build on rock, on a self-concept so stable that circumstances become irrelevant, the house stands through every storm the world can generate, and after enough storms pass without moving you, something beautiful happens. You stop watching the weather entirely. You're just home. The foundation has always been the choice. The rock has always been there, beneath the sand, waiting for you to dig past the easy ground and build where nothing shifts. Your next assumption doesn't need more emotion behind it. It needs less. It needs the quiet, immovable certainty of someone who has already decided and closed the door on every voice that says otherwise.